Hi, everybody. It's Bernie Gallerani bringing you another episode of Success is Not Convenient. Our guest today is Dennis McCurdy. He's a down-to-earth expert who knows a thing or two about getting things done, even when life tries to get in the way. Dennis is a financial advisor. He's an entrepreneur, author, and Air Force Security Force veteran whose career has spanned helping people secure their finances, manage risk, and most importantly, get out of their own way to achieve their dreams. Dennis is the author of several books, including his latest humorous and practical guide, Suck It Up Cupcake, Stop Screwing Yourself, and Get the Life You Want, where he dives deep into the realities of chasing your ambitions, surviving setbacks, and rekindling excitement when motivation fades. Whether he's helping small businesses, coaching individuals to break through procrastination, or sharing a powerful insight about mental toughness and the power of connection. He's here today to share his unique approach to overcoming obstacles, setting meaningful goals, and why sometimes laughing at yourself is the best way forward. Get ready to take notes. Please welcome Dennis McCurdy. Hello, Dennis, and welcome to another Success is Not Convenient podcast. And my guest, Dennis McCurdy, is here to talk with us and help us as entrepreneurs. Dennis, my show is really about people who are entrepreneurs, they're business owners, and what we like to talk about, what we kind of get into the meat of, business owners is kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly of being a business owner. And so now that you're an author of 4 books based on different topics, and Suck It Up, I think your book now, or the one you just wrote not recently, is Suck It Up Buttercup, or Suck It Up Cupcake. Yep.
Yeah.
And so thank you for joining me today on this podcast. And tell me a little bit about your history, your story, and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I drove from my house to here, so it was, but no. So I was a high school flunky. I graduated 8th in my class from the bottom, and went in the military. Came back from the war, and I was doing what everybody thought you should do. You should go to college. So I enrolled in this local community college. And then one day I was at a coffee shop, I think working on a project for school, because I love coffee shops. And 2 high school friends were there. And they said, yeah, we're working for Boston Mutual Insurance, but we're going to start our own insurance agency and real estate company. We're all like 23 years old. I said, you can do that? And so from there it was like, buy books, hello buildings. I was going to be a real estate tycoon. And so I got my license, quit college, and that was it.
What did your parents think about that, you quitting college?
I don't think my mother's father was a kind of an entrepreneurial person, so I don't think he thought too much of it. They kind of let me run my own thing. I mean,
yeah,
I was 23 years old. I was a Vietnam veteran. I mean, they weren't going to,
Gotcha.
So,
well, thank you for serving our great country.
Yeah. And then, what was I going to say? So it was just basically, hey, this is going to be something that fits my personality. And I started selling greeting cards, Christmas cards, and flower seeds. And see, out of the Boys Life magazine, when I was 12 years old, I would order the stuff. They'd ship it to me. I'd go door to door selling it, and then I'd send their portion of the money back. And so I mean, kind of fit my personality.
Sounds like you just were entrepreneurial from the start.
I was a worker from the start. Whatever it was, if it was work, I was going to do it. So I got my first job sweeping floors when I was 12 at the elementary school, 50 cents an hour.
Wow.
And and so with me, I mean, I was at the coffee shop this morning at 6:15. That's where I usually 6:15 to 7:30. That's my leave me alone time.
Yeah, it's kind of like your dentist time, your kind of thinking time.
Get things done. Yeah.
So you got the real estate business, and how long were you in the real estate business?
14 months.
Because I see it was a metropolis of a career for you.
Yeah, it was. Well, what happened was we were going into a recession. This is 74, 73, 74. Interest rates were on the rise. So we were 3 20-year-olds or 23-year-olds like, huh? What do we do? But so what happened though, but yeah, I just want to say this one thing. That was kind of a failure there. But during that period of time, I learned about houses, about land. I mean, 23, I learned about houses, land, investments, land development. We actually built, I think, 3 or 4 spec houses. So I was on the job site building houses because one of the guys was a carpentry graduate. So the amazing amount of learning I got in that 14 months was crazy. Uh,
It probably
and it
wasn't a failure though, was it? Because I mean, you learned a lot. I'm sure
was
you
a
took.
success.
Yeah, it was a success.
And I mean, the things that I learned then, I still use today. When somebody questions me on something about building or whatever, it's like, no, no, you can't do that, or what you can do that, or here's what it's like. I mean, everything we learn, as you know, just adds, makes us more valuable.
You know, I try to share that with the stuff that I do and the people that I coach and train in the industries that I'm involved in. And I always tell everyone there's no such thing as failure, right? It's just lots of ways to learn that this way doesn't work and maybe this way might be better. And so, you know, I'm in the sales world and have been in the sales world my whole life. And they always talk about, well, I don't really like rejection. I don't even know what that word rejection means because all we're doing is hunting for a yes.
Right.
And so you have to go through a whole bunch of people that give you a whole bunch of reasons why they're not.
Right.
I don't think of that, Dennis, as rejection. I just say that that's not the person that is ready for me yet.
Correct.
Tell me a
Right.
little bit about your experience with that.
Well, it's the same basic thing that you know. It's just you're not a fit right now. You don't need the product right now. Maybe your brother-in-law is doing it. Whatever. It just doesn't work. I always there was a guy named Jack Falvey from New Hampshire. Used to teach sales training across the country, and he had the SW equals N formula for sales. Some will, some won't. So what? Next.
Yep.
You know, and I love that. You know, and
Some
that's what
will,
it is.
some won't. So what? Next.
Next. You know, and some of the ones that will or won't in the beginning will come back to you later. You just never know.
So let me ask you this then question. Let's just lead off of this and go, why do some people feel like they don't like rejection? That brings them down. How can you help somebody say, listen, you're not really getting rejected, but they feel like it's on, like something's wrong with them or that they're not qualified to get people to say yes, and they feel bad about themselves because somebody rejects them. Well, you know, what can you say to those people that feel that way?
We take things personally. I mean, that's the whole thing, is learning to separate what you're doing from who you are. And that's one of the big things, because, you know, we're as human beings, we're sensitive, we're tribal, we need people. And so a lot of people feel that personally, which is, it's not personal. You know, again, they may not need what you have. They may be doing it with somebody else they love. It's just what it is. And so
maybe you can help me, because I coach people. Of course, I hear this all the time. What are some things I can share with somebody that I'm talking with who feels there is rejection? I mean, you and I can say it's not personal, right? Mm-hmm. And I believe that because we're salespeople. We've been in this boat. What's a good way we can describe this to somebody else who does feel vulnerable that they're actually being rejected?
Well, that's a real tough one.
Let me give you an example. So what I say to somebody is, I say, you know, let's assume we're on a rowboat and we're saving people that need our help, and we throw them a life vest or a life raft for them to grab onto and pull them in, and they just refuse to allow us to help them.
Right.
And I look at things and go, sometimes some people are going to say, no, I don't want your help. Right. And then what you have to do is you have to go on to the next person, because out of this group, you might have 4 or 5 people that believe somebody better is going to come along. And then someone smart out there is going to say, I'm grabbing onto this life raft so I can save my life, regardless of whether I think something else is better going to come along. Right. So I try to change how people try to look at the level of rejection. It's not rejection. It's just they just don't see the value in what you're saying as of right now.
As of right now, exactly. And maybe that'll change. I mean, I've had people come, as you probably have too, come back to you 6 months later and say, "Oh, I think I want to do that," because they finally figured out, "Yeah, I do need that." But somebody once said, it's like having a pot of gold. You want to go around and say, "Hey, I got a pot of gold for you. Do you want it or not?" And again, as long as if you're selling good quality, you're selling real estate or good quality things. I'm a certified financial planner as well, so I'm helping people get where they want. If they don't want to do that, and a lot of them don't, then hey, nothing you can do about it. It's I feel
Yeah.
sad. I feel sad for them a lot of times.
Yeah. No, boy, it's hard because you see people with talent and they can't get out of their own way of being
Oh,
as successful as they can be because of whatever goes on inside of their head.
smart people. I'll tell you a quick. Once I was in a men's group with in the men's group there were three psychologists, one other business owner, and one medical PhD or whatever. And so one of the guys asked me to coach him. Here's a guy, single, 60 something years old, no house, no wife, no kids, so nothing to really tie him down, having to borrow on his credit card to pay his taxes every year.
Hmm.
And with a PhD. And I finally said, will you help me a little bit? And I said, okay, I'll help you. So I did some coaching for him. First thing I do was I got him to raise his prices. So I can't do that. I said, yes, you can. And he finally raised his prices and he got twice as much business. And it's like, I said, it's the value. If you don't perceive your own value, then how is somebody else going to perceive your value? And so I here's a guy, if he was going to teach a class, because he also taught some classes as an adjunct, he'd read 20 books to teach a class because he wanted to make sure that nobody could ask a question he couldn't answer. I asked him to read one book, Susan Jeffers' Field of Fear and Do It Anyway. And every time a month he'd come back, oh, I didn't have time. I said, wait a second, you could read 20 books for a month, but now you can't read this one? He finally read the book, and now he gives it to his patients. But it's people get in their own way. I mean, here's a brilliant guy. Get in their own way.
Yeah, this leads me into one of the things that's in your book, and it says comfort is the enemy of growth.
Absolutely.
What is tell me a little bit about that, like, because I would say comfort, we all have a level of comfort that we're justify as okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a great book out there, and I've recommended it a lot on these podcasts. It's called Daryl Rutherford's Being the Solution. If you've never read Daryl Rutherford's Being the Solution, it's a fantastic book.
I'm going to write that one down.
And it talks about, and best probably to get that book if you're going to get it on audio, because the book, he's passed a few years ago,
mm-hmm.
and he was over 100 when he passed. And I had done some
Wow.
workshops with him, and I've read a ton of his books. He's got like 3 or 4 books that he's written.
Nice.
They're all fantastic. But he talks about we live in a box, and in our box that we live in is our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And everything we want is outside of that box.
Right.
But us stepping outside of that box makes us feel vulnerable,
mm-hmm.
Scared, fearful, right? Whatever it is.
Right.
So if comfort is the enemy and growth feels inconvenient, talk a little bit about that. That's in your book.
What is comfort? Comfort is security. And anytime we try anything new, or asking somebody on a date, asking somebody to do business with us, it brings that fear up. That fear, again, fear of rejection. Somebody's not going to like me. And again, because we're so tribal, that need for other people is so strong that it tends to override sometimes the good we can do for people. Because think about it. I think I said in the book is that back in the old days, way old days, if one of the worst things that could happen to you, you'd be banished. You don't exist.
Yeah.
You'd be exiled.
Yeah.
In fact, I read that in early New England, because they were very religious, the Puritans, if you were a bad boy or bad girl, you'd be banished from the church. But you still had to go to church. So they had a little window on the side of the church. You couldn't go inside, but you had to go to church and watch from the window outside and then leave before the people came out. because you couldn't have any. So that is so ingrained in us. Be nice,
Yes.
uh, it's tough. It's
Yeah,
tough.
it is tough, and especially if you're a business owner and you're trying to do something and you're trying to make everybody happy,
Right.
right? Um,
And the thing is, if you're given value, that's the key. You have to understand your value, and you have to make sure that you're giving good value. And then what's the problem?
I think there's a lot there. Like I'll even talk about we have this. I had this topic in one of these other podcasts that I did about turning up your financial thermostat,
Hmm.
and it was really about you live to a financial comfort zone um, that justifies you preventing yourself from growing anymore
Hmm.
because your mortgage is paid, your car payment's paid, you got a little money in the bank.
Right.
And then so what my mentor used to always say to me, Dennis, is you need to up your thermostat, your financial thermostat,
Right.
on having other things that you desire so you can then put yourself in an uncomfortable position to seek past the income that you're currently
Right.
comfortable earning.
Right.
And that's a hard one for a lot of people. And it's something that I share with a lot of the people that I work with. It's
Yeah.
what else do you want? Because once you reach that number, that financial number that pays for those things, then going beyond that comfort zone is difficult for you. So is it because that maybe they don't really, so here might be a better question, is that they don't desire more because they don't believe they will have more? Maybe to so they're not disappointed in themselves, maybe? Elaborate on that a little bit.
It's just, it all goes back. You said it. All goes back to beliefs. What do you believe? I really, many, like 25 years ago, I was talking with one of my mentors, and I said to him, "Hey, I want to make $200,000 next year." And he said, "Oh, I think you could make three or 400,000." And I felt myself starting to vibrate. What do you mean 3 or 400,000? Nobody's worth 3 or 400,000. You're crazy. Nobody can do that. But he was right. I just had to change my mindset.
Yeah.
You
God,
know,
that's so good.
and it was like, and I literally felt like, oh my God. But maybe you have to do a few things different. You have to up your ante game as far as who you're talking to, whatever it happens to be. Uh, but yeah, but we get comfortable. And Mark Twain said, "Comfort makes cowards of us all."
Wow, that's so great. I think about a time where I was gonna buy a home, and I was buying a home that I felt financially I was comfortable with.
Hmm.
And then I saw a home that I wanted that I was uncomfortable with.
Right.
And so meaning like, yeah, I don't think I can afford that kind of a thing. And it was that story I told myself. And as I expressed that to my wife, and then she went to the bank, and then the bank was like, "Are you kidding? You can afford this pretty easily." Right. But my mind didn't want to go there at
Right.
all. And
Right.
so, but what was really interesting about, increasing your financial thermostat is it wasn't that particular home that I bought. It was actually another home that was even more so expensive than the one I really loved. Um, but that next year, by making that risk or taking that risk, my income as a salesperson, my income doubled because I was able to put myself in a different realm of being uncomfortable,
Right.
that I actually did so much more in order to be able to afford that thing that made me so uncomfortable to make a decision to do. So I've learned that putting yourself in an uncomfortable position all the time is where the growth comes from. My mentor always says to me, I want you to be very comfortable with always being uncomfortable.
Right. That's a
Elaborate
classic.
on that if you can on your
That's a
end.
classic. Well, just that made me think of one thing we were talking about that too, is that my father-in-law, who's long since passed, God bless him, was the president of, or vice president of Kawasaki. Well, it used to be Ludlow Papers and Carpets. They got bought out. He passed away, but he left there at 65, and he got so bored. By the time he was 65 and a half, he had another job selling for a large printing company, but he was comfortable calling on presidents of companies because he was a vice president. So he had thought about nothing about going to some big company and said, "Let me see the president."
Yeah.
you know. And they of course they brought him in, and he'd make big sales. He was actually doing the Brookstone catalog. That was one of his clients. So it's just adjusting that mindset, and that's where I think I'm an extremely big believer in having a mentor or a coach. And I think on one of your first things when you talk about the top 10 things for small business people, you know, once you get out there, you're out there on your own. You're the boss, which, as I always tell people, the greatest thing about owning your own business is you're the boss, and the worst thing about owning your own business is you're the boss.
Well, I think that um, I get the opportunity to work with a lot of independent contractors in my world, and so I watch how a lot of these independent contractors work. And they're all entrepreneurs; they all own their own business. They just
Sure.
I have a service I provide, but they certainly go out and create their own outcomes. And and I find myself in a position as a coach with them, and their inability to stay focused on the daily routines, being committed to a consistent time frame of coming to work and doing the job they're supposed to be doing. So the good news and the blessing is they're independent contractors and they can do whatever they want. The sad side of it, though, is they're independent contractors and they can do whatever
Do
they
whatever they
want.
want. Right, exactly.
So it's like, hey, listen, I became an independent contractor so I could come and go as I want, but yet they sit in poverty a lot of times. A lot of people do. They can't figure out how to get out of their own way. But I wanted to ask you a question based on this. In how much of the behavior of a person do you believe comes from their childhood?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I came from my father was a sharecropper. His father was a sharecropper. My mother's father was a business person. Um, so, she was like kind of pro business, and he was kind of like get a job, he worked at Monsanto, get a job, work overtime, blah, blah, blah. Um, so it's hard to say that. It's just, I think something along the way has to inspire us, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
or we want, or something has to grow inside of us that we want more. We want
Yeah,
something.
because sometimes I think like I was in California recently, and I was having dinner with a very powerful group of people. I'll just leave it at that. And it was like just an awesome round table of some really
Hmm.
smart business people. And somebody brought up something um, that was interesting about their behavior. And one of the people that were in the group, who was probably the most seasoned, most experienced of the group, said, "Tell me about your childhood." And they're like, "Well, what do you mean? Tell me what your mother was like. Tell me what your father was like. Where did you learn some of these things? What do you think in that experience of your life? Where in that do you think you're most vulnerable? Where are you developed maybe your most of your insecurities? Have you done any work on any of this part where um, because we're all brought up by our parents, right, or our influences, whoever they may
Right,
be.
right,
And I'm not saying that there's anything bad or anything
right.
negative with any of that. And some may have that experience, and some may not. But um, where do you think, like I'll give you an example. Um, I grew up with a mother who was married 5 times, and a father who was pretty much abandoned their kids. So I grew up with some insecurity issues that I didn't
Hmm.
identify with till I was much later in life.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I had to then deal with that and say, I can see now where this actually showed up in my life, and why it showed up, like identified where I remember it being in my life. And until I could overcome that, I lived, scared in certain areas because
Yeah.
of that. Have you ever had any of those experiences?
Well, let's see. I mean, I grew up. I'm in a really rough family. My father was an alcoholic, a brutal alcoholic, uh, and also he was a former drill instructor in the army. So my mother's favorite saying was, "Mac, they're little boys. They're not recruits." Well, I tell you one thing that did happen because of that. I've got skills. I got skills with dealing with people because we had to deal with him. We had to learn how to pacify, to distract him. I mean, those kind of things. So I got some good skills from that, how to deal with difficult people,
Yeah.
uh, and make things come out good. In fact, somebody once said to me, You can say the most outrageous things to people and they never get upset.
Is that because when you were young and your father, the way he was, you had to dance around certain conversational points or to get, because I don't know what that dynamic looked like, but
Right.
I can tell you just from my experience hearing what you're saying, that actually probably made you a pretty good salesperson also.
Absolutely. That's what I often think of that. Made me more resilient, made me not afraid to get rejected because, hey, yeah, and it absolutely made me able to, like I said, deal with people in different situations and not get flustered because I had to deal with a violent person and not get flustered and just
And
keep
not
my
get,
cool.
yeah.
Keep my
You're
cool.
probably a little scared for your own life a little bit, where probably you didn't want to get yelled at or chewed out or something for doing something wrong, right?
Yeah, would
Especially
have
if
been
there's alcohol.
it would have been more than yelled or chewed out, but so
We're in different times now though
yeah,
than we
yeah,
were back then.
yeah. Oh yeah, things were a lot tough, and that was more. There were a lot was a lot more of that back then, I think too. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
wrong, but I think there was.
Yeah, that's for sure.
They were
You have a
hard
point in
people,
you have a part of your book that says discipline beats talent every time.
right?
Share that with me.
Well, and say discipline of, continuing to learn, continuing to push through. Uh, was actually talking about that this morning. How, I think it was the last Daniel Coy who wrote the Talent Code, and he talked about that, and I saw that in a family member who was extremely talented. I mean, every sport, music, everything. And sometimes talent can be a curse because especially when you're young because you don't then learn discipline and hard work. See, I always figured I was dumb. I had to learn discipline and hard work. My brother, everything just came easy to him. And what happens is that eventually the when you get to a certain level, everybody's talented. So the one who has a little bit of talent but can work and be disciplined, those are the ones that get ahead because it's every. Why am I at 75 years old in the coffee shop at 6:15 in the morning?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because it's the only coffee shop that's open. That one, but I mean, but because I've been doing it for 40 years.
Yeah.
That's where I wrote my books. That's
Yeah.
where I do some of my investment analysis. I mean, that's what I do. It,
It's fun because when I was brought up in my industry, I was in the and still am in the real estate industry, and I remember being very focused and anal about making sure that I was in my office at 7 a.m. And so when I would start from 7, I'd work 12 hours a day, 7 to 7.
yeah,
And I remember like I had to be there by 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock, not 7:01, never 7:02. And sometimes people would say, well, that's a little bit of a stretch. And I'm like, not really, because it's not that 7:07:01 or 7:05, not that that made any real difference in my business. But what it did do is it made a real difference in my commitment to my business.
right.
And that was, if I was willing to shortchange the discipline of 7:05 versus 7 o'clock, if
Hmm.
I renegotiated that with myself, then where else in my life, Dennis, would that show up in my
Sure,
life?
sure.
Because you don't just renegotiate with yourself on, hey, listen, I want to be disciplined and do this for myself. And the minute you cheat on that, or the minute you're willing to renegotiate that, then you've done it so much and you've disappointed yourself so much for not being faithful to your commitment that you have no issues with not doing it on other things.
Right. You say, yeah, right. You send that message, and it's tough to keep going, but it's necessary. I mean, people would say to me, you're in the office on Saturday. Yep, I am. You know, you're in the it's Sunday. You're in the office. Yep, I am. Well,
Yeah, I think that I don't know if it's certain disciplined people are cut from different cloths or whether or not everybody can do it. But to me, it seems easy. Like I've just been that human being that's always been committed at that level. Other people just, man, they have a hard time even putting their socks on right and functioning. And I don't know if it's that they just don't care
I
or
think
if
that's
they're
what they get in their
fearful.
head. It's their beliefs, and of course, a lot of what we do is fueled by some kind of fear or doubt, as you well
Hmm.
know. And so, It's just easier to just say, hey, make excuses, you know,
Yeah. Well, because they've always made excuses, right?
right?
And I make excuses too. So I'm not
I
saying
know
I'm
we're not
better there,
perfect.
but I'm probably better than some areas in the
I
discipline
did
side.
kind of see a halo there. I wasn't sure.
Well, I didn't know if you could see it. I'm glad that you noticed it, though. I work.
But yeah,
I'm just messing.
we all make, we all screw up sometimes. But that's I think that's one of the things. Just because you happen to screw up, that doesn't mean you can't get right back on the horse. And because we're human,
We're human beings. You have a part in here in this book. It says excuses sound smart and pay nothing.
right?
Go
And
go on that one because that one I have a lot. A lot there for me. Share with me your thoughts.
well, like my friend Charlie always says, he said, stop making excuses like there's a reward because there is none. And so it's just one of those things. What did there's a very famous guy named Eric Hoffa who wrote a book called True Believers. He got Reagan gave him the Freedom Medal or whatever. Very very talented author, and he wrote, "We lie loudest when we lie to ourselves." And
Wow.
I quote that in almost every speech I do because um, it's true. But unfortunately, we believe the lies and we make excuses, and it just for some people it just
It just makes us feel better, I guess.
for the moment.
And it's interesting when we talk about a lie because I don't even look at a lie as telling a tale that's not true. I think as a lie is um, making up a reason why we didn't do.
Right.
So, like, I just had one the other day, and it was like last week, and this was going to be a doozy of justifying why I did something.
Hmm.
Right. So I had said, well, this is a story I told myself, Dennis, that and I like one that was believable. Like I would even believe it even though I made it up, right?
Yeah.
Like I thought, well, that sounds very logical on why I didn't do that. So that
Hmm.
logical reason why I didn't do it would then become my story. Before I decided to share my very well thought out story, I thought to myself, is that the truth? Like that I
Hmm.
could say that and somebody would believe it, but do I believe it? And the
Right.
answer to that was no, I didn't even believe it. So of course I didn't
Yeah.
use it.
Right.
But but I think that sometimes we get caught up in telling stories because like I'll give you an example. Like, hey, I couldn't get here this morning on time because I had to drop my kid off at school.
Right.
Well, you knew you had to drop your kid off at school before you
Right.
committed to this day. So you didn't get, not because you had to drop your kid off at school, it's because you didn't plan your accordingly to the right life. So you're like, this is why I didn't do this. This
Right.
is why I didn't get my job done. The only reason we don't get our job done is because we're not committed enough to getting the job done.
Right. Right. And then
So
we make
instead of saying, hey, I'm
excuses.
not committed, I'm going to take my kid to school, we say, I had to take my kid to school, which is why I didn't get my job done. It's like, no,
Exactly.
you
No.
just aren't that committed to getting your job done. And you took a priority taking your kid to school, which there's nothing wrong with. But let's just be honest with
Right.
ourselves that that's really the issue. It's a lack of commitment to getting your job done.
Yeah. This is the choice I made,
It's
and
just the choice I made. Yep.
right, taking responsibility for those choices.
This next one I want to get your thoughts on because this is an interesting. You write, do the boring reps daily. That's where winners are built.
Yeah.
Doing the
Well,
repetitious
and
process is
daily,
what I would
right.
say.
Exactly. I mean, how much? I mean, how many? Once you've done something 1,000 times, it's like whether it's lifting weights or whether making sales calls or whether talking to prospects or whatever, networking. It's the same thing. You just got to say you got to do the reps. End of story. No discussion.
Yep. Yep. You got to do the reps regardless of how you feel. And what my mentor always says is um, it is the process of repetition is going to be boring and you
Mhm.
need to embrace repetitious boredom.
That's right.
And I think every successful person who does something at the level they need to do it to succeed, there's going to be a lot of times where it's very boring. And the
Very.
successful people embrace boredom in that manner.
Yeah. That's why you have to get up every day and show up. And well, my newest book, Unleash the Power of Connection, I talk about there's a chapter called The Valley of Dead Dreams. And it's where dreams go to die. And so you get up there, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm excited, blah, blah, blah. And then the work happens, and it happens, and it happens, and it happens, and it happens long before you get to the other side. And that valley can be very long, which is where most people quit.
Mm.
It's
Yeah. I was reading and teaching something earlier to my group, and this one came up, and I'll share it with you. We can talk about it here in a minute. But it said the reason why we fail is it's not that we're not focused on our goal. It's that we don't look at our commitment as a contract. So I'll put this in the real estate world where we have a buyer rep contract, or we have a listing or purchase and sale contract. And if whatever happens, that contract has an end date. And there's rules associated with that agreement. And when there's a contract signed on a buyer and seller side, a purchase and sale agreement, all the parties are going to adhere to that process. And once they go through that, then if anybody defaults on that agreement, then they're in breach of that contract, and the other one's going to sue the other one right. And in this thing I was working on earlier with my group, it talked about the problem is not the level of the dream. The problem is the contractual relationship associated with achieving it. And that cheating or being dishonest in a dream is acceptable because a lot of people have dreams that never are fulfilled. But if you make a contract with somebody, Dennis, and let's just say I was doing it with you, and I said, hey, listen, I'm going to write a contract out to you, Dennis, and I want to accomplish these 5 things in 2026. And if I don't, I'm going to write you a check for $100,000. Or someone else can say, hey, I can write you a check for $1,000 or $5,000.
I'll take it.
You'll take it, right? You'd say, yeah, hey, Bernie, I'll hold you accountable. And the problem is we don't have it written out in an accountability relationship with somebody that is going to hold us accountable.
Right.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, 2 things. One, when I used to run my mastermind groups, I would make the people in the group, they would set their goals. They would come to the meeting, they would set their goals, and then I would have their partner, their goal buddy, sign the contract, sign the goals with a penalty clause. I was like, if you don't do these things between now and next month, it's $250 or $500 or whatever. Because that built accountability. It always goes back to, and it's tough when you're an entrepreneur, accountability, because we don't have a boss.
Yeah.
And so for 7 years, had a goal buddy named Margot, and we met every single month for 7 years. We were supposed to have a small mastermind group, but these other people would come. They come twice, and then they don't show up anymore. They have excuses. They're too busy. They have this. No, we never missed for 7 years, but they were too busy. And so we wrote our goals out at the end of the month, post-dated check, $500 to each other. And you didn't do your goals? Woohoo! They spent the money. But it got to be the point, it wasn't the money anymore. I couldn't go back and say to Margot, I didn't do it. Because that's where it really starts to kick in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder how many people who fall short of their goal, which is majority of people, but fall short of their goal, if they just had a high enough level of accountability where there was some pain associated with not accomplishing it, if more people wouldn't accomplish their goal, if there was some sort of a pain, whether I say pain meaning writing a check or doing something that they don't want to do.
Or even just personal accountability.
Anywhere in that personal accountability. You got to wonder if somebody had that personal accountability, how many more people would succeed at a higher level?
Oh, a tremendous amount. So, but I'm thankful for that because it makes it easier on me.
Meaning that other
less
people
competition.
don't do that?
Less competition.
Are you saying because other people don't do that?
Yeah, less competition. I've always said there's a lot of people smarter than me, but they can't get out of their own way, which is easier for me. So thank God for them.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's kind of sad because you see so many people who struggle financially, and you look at this and going, like, listen, I'll just say this. I know somebody, I won't point any fingers in any directions, but I know somebody who complains financially, and yet they miss a lot of days of work. They're always sick. They have this going on, and then they talk about a lack of funds. And I feel like saying, well, if you just stay focused on the job at hand and
Right.
receive the paycheck in which the seat you sit in allows you to earn, your financial picture would be completely different if you stopped being sick,
Yeah.
telling yourself you're sick,
Yeah.
telling yourself you have something better to do. It's
Yeah.
like poverty is a choice.
It is a choice. You know, I mean, for most people, I mean, success and failure are both choices, and it's just a matter of which choice you want to make. You know.
It is. It is. And so tell me about the new book you're working on.
Well, the most recent one I published was called Unleash the Power of Connection, and it's all about mastermind groups, goal buddies, accountability. It's all accountability because I think that's where people lack the most, and that's where they really need to focus on trying to build that into their life. And if everybody was, as you said, everybody was accountable, everything would be better. You know, I mean, if they would, we wouldn't have to worry about feeding people because they'd be feeding themselves and taking care of themselves, and our health care would be better because people would be physically fit. I mean, just we need to have that, and we've become too much of a let them slide kind of thing.
Okay, so let me ask you this. On a scale of 1 to 10, people who set goals to achieve something bigger, is what percentage maybe of the population that actually sets a goal? 5, 10%?
Yeah, 5% maybe.
5%.
Yeah.
So 95% of the people don't really ever even think about what they want.
Right, and part of it is there's a system that in a way brainwashes us. We've been fed all this crap. Here's a great story. My friend Danny, who's a coach and a marketing coach, she was talking to one of her clients, and the client said, "We're talking about money," and she said, "Well, I don't want to, too much money, you can become a bad person." And so Danny says to her, "Well, when do you become a bad person? Is it $50,001? Now you're bad? I mean, what's the deal?" And it's we have all these beliefs in our heads that stop us, and that's really the crux of it.
It's funny that you say that. Years ago, when I used to live in Las Vegas, I knew this guy, and I say he was successful. He was much more successful than I was, but I wasn't very successful. So he had a little bit more money than I did, which, I mean, I don't know how much he had, but I'll never forget what he said to me one day. And he says, "Remember this, Bernie, money is the root of all evil."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't really understand what that means. Here's what my mentor always says, and I think you've heard Tony Robbins has said this a ton too. And he says, money just makes you more of what you were when you were poor.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
I will say, if you were a jerk before, you're going to be a jerk with money.
You're going to be a jerk with money. That's right. And if you were nice before, you're going to be more gracious and nice with money.
Absolutely.
And so I love that. So money's not the root of all evil. I think worshiping money is probably not a good thing, right?
Right.
I know that's not a good thing, worshiping it, but having it and doing the right things with it. Money is a tool, just like anything else.
Yeah.
And you can do some great things for some great people with it. You can do some great things for you and your family with it. Money has no negative connotation whatsoever, other than the person who keeps it in their pocket could make it.
You can do amazing things with money. In fact, the more money you make and the more things you delegate out, the more you help somebody else, because they have a job now. They're doing something. So spreading that money out.
That's fair. And I think that the folks that I know that have a tremendous amount of money, those folks are very gracious in giving with most of it,
Right.
charities. And I think that the right kind of people with the right kind of money can make this world a better place.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Dennis, I know we're running out of time. I wanted to say thank you. And I would love it if you're open to maybe doing another one with the other book that you're one you're writing now, or the one that you've written recently.
Sure.
I like to try to learn as much as I can from people and stories and habits and downs and ups and things like that about life. And so it's always fun to have great people like you on here. What's the best, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can just DennisMcCurdy.com.
Okay,
They can just go on there.
DennisMcCurdy.com.
Yeah.
And what we'll do is we'll put that down
Yeah.
on this video so everybody can get a chance to contact you if they need to ask you any questions or how to get more of your books.
I'll respond. If they send me an email, I'll definitely respond. They can just Google me. They'll find my phone number. They can call me, whatever. But I wanted to tell you one last thing is, remember the real estate that I lasted 14 months in?
Yeah.
4 years later, I started my own real estate company. I had 20 people working for me at that time. So we were the second largest in our little area here.
So you had that real estate company. Originally, you were in it for 14 months, right?
I worked for somebody else. I was
for somebody. Then you opened your own real estate company.
Yes.
And how long did you have that business?
Oh, 20 years.
And you had how many realtors that worked for you?
20.
20. Okay. Good. Good.
Yeah, we were building spec houses and doing that, and yeah.
And did you sell that business, or did you just exit it altogether?
I got tired of listening to whiny salespeople. Do you remember Floyd? Were you around when Floyd Wickman was around?
Of course.
Yeah, so Floyd, 1/3 of the people were on their way in, 1/3 of the people were on their way out of the real estate business at all times.
It was really funny. The stat just came out this year of 25, meaning now we're in 26, but that 72% of every licensed agent in the United States of America in 25, 72% did not even sell one house.
Yeah.
Right. So that 1/3 is in, what 1/3's coming out. It's so true. And if you look at our group, we have 1/3 of our people are exceptional. 1/3 of our people are average salespeople, which is still really good on our team. And then the bottom group is trying to even survive to even pay their bills.
Well, yeah.
So that 1/3 rule from Wickman, Gino Wickman, his son, has a great program out for entrepreneurs. If you've not heard of it,
really?
Yeah, it's called the EOS program, and it's really about business owners. And so I recommend anybody who has not looked into the EOS program, they should. But yeah, his son is doing some amazing things too for business owners. But thank you so much, Dennis. Appreciate you, and we look forward to having you back here to talk about the next book in the future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Bernie.